Chasing superstars has officially boxed the Miami Heat into a corner, if not a coffin. No matter what else they do, they will always be judged off one question. Did they acquire superstar player X? Until the answer is yes, the Heat's present and future will be deemed underwhelming. Look no further than the Athletic's offseason rankings, in which David Aldridge builds a pecking order featuring every team, based on how they fared relative to their goals and available options. The Heat sit in 23 RD place. If this feels low, that's because it is low. Miami falls behind the Chicago Bulls for crying out loud. They finished in 18th place, even though their biggest accomplishment is not yet overpaying Josh Giddey. You know why the Heat's offseason isn't viewed favorably. To Aldridge's credit, he did praise the Heat's acquisition of Norman Powell because, quite frankly, they stole him from the Los Angeles Clippers. He also applauds scooping up Kasparas Jakušionis at number 20 and thinks that Simone Fontecchio will be a useful addition. The primary qualm seems to be the same as everyone else's primary qualm. Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Devin Booker, Jaylen Brown, LeBron James, et al. Don't currently reside in Miami. Aldridge writes that the Heat don't have many more assets left to try and take the kind of huge offseason swings we've associated with Pat Riley's stewardship. This is to some extent accurate. Durant was Miami's latest superstar pursuit, and it came up short. Even if the front office could have gotten a deal done by including Kel'el Ware, it doesn't say a lot about the Heat's asset stores that they couldn't get an agreement over the hump without him. That's not too problematic in this specific instance. It may even be a blessing in disguise. Durant turns 37 in September and could sign a 2-year extension worth north of $100 million. Miami would have been playing a risky game by forking over draft picks to get him and then paying top dollar to keep him. The assets issue will be a different story in future negotiations. We know the Heat continue to lust after Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's debatable whether their best packages will stand up to the field's top offers if and when the two-time MVP becomes available. Still, the Heat's offseason is being underrated. Dinging the Heat for failing to make a blockbuster splash rings incredibly hollow. Franchise directions are not as binary as did they acquire a superstar or not. That's truer than ever this summer. Durant is the only superstar to change teams. The big-name market is otherwise dry. Are we penalizing the Heat for not going all in on Desmond Bane? Or because they failed to acquire a player who isn't available? There are real nits to pick with Miami's offseason. The Haywood-Highsmith trade remains completely, utterly, inexplicably bizarre. We also can and should have a discussion about the Heat's future plans and whether their assets will stack up versus other teams when the right star hits the block. This summer specifically, though, the Heat have done mostly quality work. They may not be certified contenders, but they deepened a rotation and beefed up the offense without bankrupting their future on the wrong star. Or, worse, non-star. That's not a bottom 7 offseason. Of course, the fact that it can be viewed as such is partly on the Heat. Their superstar pursuits are well documented, even overcovered. That's clearly prompted people to treat those chases as Miami's entire identity. Jimmy Butler spent more than 5 seasons with the Miami Heat and, for a time, was the centerpiece of their plans and culture. But things soured quickly between Butler and the team, and he was sent to the Golden State Warriors last season. Now, some inside reporting from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald is casting a light on how things fell apart. Apparently, the Heat were assured that Butler would play well and be on his best behavior. He didn't, and that put the team in a very difficult spot. A Heat source said Butler's agent, Bernie Lee, promised Miami that Butler would comport himself well last season and would never complain about not getting a contract extension. That proved to be untrue, leaving the Heat without any bargaining position at the trade deadline. In retrospect, the Heat should have sought that assurance directly from Butler last July, Jackson wrote. Butler was reportedly unhappy with his position on the team and Miami's prospects. He didn't want to play for a team that was struggling and refusing to use him as often as he wanted. There were reports that stated he refused to practice, missed plane flights, and constantly had a bad attitude. The Heat suspended him multiple times and got to work at finding a new home for him. When he was finally sent to the Warriors, He had left such a bad taste in the mouths of all Miami fans that his legacy with that team is now tarnished. But he seems to be much happier with Golden State, and the Heat are attempting to carve out a path without him. It's shocking to hear how bad things got between the Heat and Butler, but it's clear that this relationship had come to a traumatic and undeniable end. The Miami Heat are still lacking a definitive roster centerpiece after they fell short in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes earlier this summer, but they could try to change that in the 2026 offseason. Atlanta Hawks star floor general TRAE Young is one player who could potentially hit unrestricted free agency in 2026. After he gets paid nearly $46 million this season, he has a player option attached to his contract for the 2026-27 season that he could decline. However, according to Heat insider Ethan J. Skolnick, Miami has never been all that high on Young internally, making it seem unlikely that the team would trade for the guard or sign him as a free agent. Plus, the internal Miami Heat word about Young has never been glowing, Skolnick wrote. The Hawks may choose to move on from Young as they are reloading their roster with young talent and have a better two-way lead guy in Jalen Johnson returning from injury. But it's hard to see the Heat being the team that takes Young from them, either via trade or if he becomes free in 2026. There's no denying that Young brings a lot to the table. He's an incredibly gifted scorer and playmaker, as he's averaged 25.3 points and 9.8 assists per game for his pro career. He is also on the heels of leading the league in assists, as he dished out a whopping 11.6 per contest in the 2024-25 season. Plus, even though Atlanta has experienced limited playoff success in recent years, Young has led the Hawks deep into the playoffs before. Atlanta made a surprise run to the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2021 NBA playoffs before losing to the eventual NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games in that series. But there are still reasons to be concerned about how Young would fit on the Heat even with the offensive maestro that he is. Namely, he's never been known for his defense, and Miami has long taken pride on that end of the floor as a franchise. The best course of action for Miami regarding Young might be to only consider acquiring him if he is on the open market as a free agent next summer. It would be easier to justify adding him to the fold if the Heat can do so without gutting their roster in a trade for him, but if the team would have to part with a lot of valuable assets, that's another story entirely. Hopefully, Young won't sign a long-term extension to remain with the Hawks franchise in the near future.